Friend asked me to teach him how to grow food, and um, it's a difficult question to answer or a difficult thing to teach, because there's so many different ways and, um, you know, levels of commitment. But, simply put, in order to grow food, you need to bury seeds in the ground. Um, Seeds need water in order to germinate. They need consistently to be moist in order to germinate. So if you're trying to germinate seeds in the ground, for me, I always think that I need to water my seeds when I first put them in the ground. However, if you're living in a climate that has rain, you can plant before it rains for a while and let the consistent rain germinate the seeds. Um, Plants want to grow. That's their life mission, is to grow and to produce seeds. I don't know. But they like to grow. They love to grow. And um, if you plant a lot of different types of seeds in an area and water them and wait, you know, that's how you grow seeds. Um, for me, I like to grow a lot of food, and I like the idea of uh, growing a lot of calories, um, smaller spaces, like a yard that was, a backyard in a house or something like that. So I like the idea of planting a ground cover of beans, uh, like dry beans, like dry bush beans. I have cowpeas, black and red cowpeas from Native Seed Search. I've been saving my seeds, so I put my own seeds now, but that's where I got them initially. But if you're in a different climate than where I grow seeds in the desert, then you would want to buy seeds locally from an heirloom place, maybe online. That's what I would suggest, to go online and look up your area, your state, or wherever you are, and type in heirloom seeds after that, and try to find a good place that sells good heirloom seeds. And I would buy things like dry bush beans. I would buy things um, like corn. I would buy maybe sweet corn or um, popcorn or flour corn, but I would probably buy sweet corn to start. So I'd buy bush beans, dry bush beans, and sweet corn, and something like cowpeas that are, like dry cowpeas, like red cowpeas. Sometimes those they're called cowpeas, are similar to what we would buy as a dry bean in a grocery store. So when you think of beans in a grocery store, that's the kind of ground cover dry bush beans that I would suggest that people grow just everywhere. Just plant as many of the seeds as you can, and then when they all grow and produce a lot of beans for you, and you let them dry on the plant and you harvest them, you plant a bunch next season, and then you have even more beans. Beans are a really good thing to grow. And then the same idea with corn, just plant a bunch of corn everywhere and a bunch of beans everywhere. This is how I grow food. There's pole beans that are dry pole beans too. That my beans are like bush and pole beans that I grow, so they like will bush out, but then they're also seeking to climb, so they'll do kind of both. But dry beans are good to grow a lot of. Um, Sweet peas are good. So like a pea that's eaten raw with the shell and everything. Those are really good to grow. Carrots take a little bit of extra. You have to bury them very lightly under the ground. So they're such a small seed that you just barely, you can almost just sprinkle them on the surface of the soil and then cover that soil with a little bit of more soil or more compost or whatever. And then a good way of germinating carrots is just to keep them, really just make sure to keep them wet for like until they sprout. And you can put a piece of cardboard, you can water them and then put a piece of cardboard and then water the cardboard, and just to make sure that they stay wet. Carrots are really good to grow. Onions, just plant the seeds and water them. Um, I like sunflowers a lot. Um, Tomatoes and peppers, and cauliflower and broccoli. Uh, I like planting a lot of potatoes together. You can dig a deep trench and just plant a bunch of potatoes, maybe cut potatoes in half or in quarters if they're large, and just dig them fairly deep into the ground, like a foot and a half or a foot deep into the ground, or 7 inches or something like that deep into the ground. Or you can bury them a little less deep and then put a lot of soil on top. And as potatoes grow up, if they're growing really tall and really well, you can hill them up and put more soil around them to grow more potatoes. And all plants need water, but if you're growing in a place that rains a lot, you don't have to worry about watering too much. One thing about water is that in nature, the ground is always covered with something, and I think part of the reason why Mother Earth does that is to store water. So if you mulch the ground so that any places that isn't growing plants has some sort of um, organic matter on the surface that maybe isn't a completely broken down organic matter. And a good example of this is wood chips, maybe a concoction of grass clippings and leaves mixed together can be a good mulch, or just anything, any plant matter, any weed that you pull, you can store, just leave it on the top of the soil, just right next to all your plants and stuff, and just let everything, chop and drop everything, and let everything break down on the soil. The soil is like a big mouth. the It'll just eat everything that's organic that you put onto the ground. Just over time, it'll break down and it'll feed the soil. You don't need any fertilizers, and you don't need to till um, at all. Just if you feel like the ground is too hard to bury any seeds, you might need to till it up a little bit, but for the most part, you don't need to till. And if you keep the ground covered and you keep planting food and planting seeds in the ground, and then as you let those plants mature and then eventually die, and you gain the harvest from them and eat it or whatever and save the seeds, hopefully, just let all of that plant matter go back into the soil. And the easiest way to do that is just to chop and drop it and let it decompose right there where it grew. And if you want to plant another seed right there, all you have to do is just kind of move aside some of that dead plant matter that's covering the top of the soil, and dig a little hole or poke your finger in the ground and put your seeds in there. Seeds need water to grow, and when you are growing fruits, and all sorts of things are fruits, there's so much more fruits than you can imagine, but maybe vegetables too, some people call them, but they're mostly all fruits. Fruits or anything, any sort of seed carrying, um, sweet or carb loaded um, um, fruit that a plant will produce that carries its seed. Um, so, like a zucchini, for example, if you were going to save the seeds, by the way, whenever you plant seeds, at the end of their life, it's very important to save those seeds so that you can plant next year without having to purchase seeds again. So, ideally, you'd only have to purchase a variety of plant species once, and then you'll be set for the rest of your life. Um, the when you save seeds, you need to make sure that the plant's fully mature. So for something like zucchinis and all squashes, but zucchini, which is considered a summer squash, but can also be grown to full maturity as a winter squash, sort of, that it develops a harder shell, so it stores longer if you grow it when it's to its biggest and most mature form. I don't think it'd be considered a winter squash, maybe, but it definitely gets a thicker skin when it grows and matures more, and it lasts and it seems to store longer. But when you are growing zucchinis, you put the seed in the ground just like everything else, and you water it, let it germinate and grow, and they produce so much. Um, it's a lot of people will harvest, maybe a 7-inch long zucchini, that's maybe that thick, and that's when people typically eat zucchinis. But if you were going to save the seed, you would want it to get, 2 feet long and this big, and they will do that. They will get ginormous. Zucchinis will get absolutely ginormous, and when they're completely mature like that, they'll get very dark. You chop them in half and scoop all the seeds out, and get your fingers in there and separate all the meat from the seeds, and then put the seeds on a dry paper towel, and just the seeds, and let those seeds dry out on that paper towel, and then store them for next season so that you can grow food. And different plants produce seeds in different ways, so things like lettuce or chard or spinach they bolt, and they send out flowers, and those flowers get pollinated somehow, and then they kind of turn into seeds. The seeds kind of form from within the flower. There's, you know, male, female, there's all sorts of different biological things, but different plants form seeds in different ways, but the basic of it is if a plant is going to flower, you've it's kind of time for that plant to maybe stop harvesting from that plant because it's bolting, and you could either take that out and chop and drop it and let it feed the soil, or you could let it go to seed, which is ideal if you don't have those seeds in a large quantity. Basically, just let the plant live. Just keep letting the plant live until there's dry seeds on the plant that you can, grab the plant and and um, and just store the seeds. So um, pack everything in together nicely and densely, and grow diversity. Grow diversity in heights, diversity in species of plants. Grow food that you want to eat, food that that you want to cook and that you're excited about. Grow trees, plant trees from seed. Put tree seeds in the ground and just wait. Let those trees grow. It'll take a long time, but it's really nice to have lots of fruit trees, or nut trees, or nitrogen fixing trees, or whatever. Um, I have so much information about growing food, but that is some of it. Um, uh, some of the basics. I don't know. Grow a lot of food. Plant a lot. Just keep planting. Just keep planting. If you have a lot of grass, you could either try to rip out and till out all of the grass, or you could just put a bunch of mulch on the grass. You could just put a bunch of wood chips. You could contact your local city and tell them to dump wood chips in your driveway, and they will. Or you could go and find wood chips. Wood chips are around. Tree companies chop trees and they chip them up, and they don't have any place to put the wood chips that are free. They have to pay to get rid of them and stuff. So a lot of times they're eager to get rid of wood chips. So you could just put a bunch of wood chips down on top of your grass, and then dig a trench in the wood chips and then into the grass, and then you could plant a line of seeds, and then on each side of that line there's like wood chips, just a little thin layer, a couple inches of wood chips. And you could just grow rows of food like that. The way I plant food after a while of doing it, I started kind of more organized, in rows and stuff. And then I like to encourage wild, and I like to encourage seeds to grow themselves, basically. I like to encourage wild plants to become more wild, and for them to drop their seeds naturally, and then for them just to grow on their own, so I don't have to do anything. um, yeah, so there's so much stuff I want to say, and I want to help my friend and anyone who wants to grow food. And yeah, my garden is looking, well, I don't know, I always see that there's so much more to plant. There's always more to plant, and growing food it involves patience, and it's exciting, and things sometimes seem like they're taking forever, and then sometimes, if you look away for a few days and you come back, it's like, whoa, there's so much stuff growing, and so it's such an amazing thing, and oh man, it's so great. And all of the birds and bugs and different mushrooms and different things that'll happen in your yard, in your garden, is just great. And if a plant is getting eaten, then just good for the bug that's eating it. It's getting fat on the plant that you planted, and it's gonna grow and reproduce, and it's gonna it'll eat your plants, and then as it reproduces and as there becomes abundance of bugs in your yard, there's gonna be all sorts of other creatures. They're gonna be like, whoa, there's bugs in here. I want to eat those bugs. So then all those creatures are gonna come and start eating the bugs. So if you start trying to interfere with the bugs and the plants getting eaten and the mushrooms and the birds and all of these things, and if you start trying to protect too much and spray things, or if you're just not listening to nature, you're not letting the earth find its balance, and you're not letting your garden find its balance. uh, Densely plant food, put your seeds close together, and plant a lot of food densely, and plant a lot of seeds, and just and grow food. Oh man,